Welcome back to Collectible Market Analytics. Just had some thoughts and some follow-up. I had some really good feedback on the first video, so just wanted to do a little follow-up on some questions that people had asked. So today's topic is follow-up to the question of, is the junk wax era back? So just real quick, if you can, just subscribe if you like the content, leave me some comments, thumbs up the video, that all helps. And yeah, your feedback is important. So, one question was, okay, I hear you. Yes, baseball production's crazy. Basketball's going even more nuts. Almost 1 million cards graded on the basketball side, especially 2019 Prism. So what about the other sports? So I ran some analysis on football and hockey and included that in this chart here, as you can see. And again, you kind of look in 1989, you hit that baseball junk wax era. But as you can see, even in '89, production for the other sports was relatively, normal, I guess, if you could say that. You had a spike in 2000 in football, as you can imagine, with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's rookie year, you had a lot of people grading cards for 2000. But for the most part, it kind of stayed flat. All the different sports stayed together in terms of production, or at least cards graded as a proxy for production. And then you start coming into 2017, 18, and 19, and you see spikes, big spikes for baseball and basketball, but football and hockey kind of stay flat. I mean, hockey for sure stays flat, and football has a little bit of a bump. And I guess we really can't tell if this bump's going to dramatically increase in 2020. Once the grading shutdown eases up and we have a lot more grading supply available, maybe this number shoots up again. But as of right now, it looks like football and hockey are still in a range, in a similar range to the range we've seen over the last 30 years or so. So it seems limited to baseball and basketball at this point. So, the next question somebody asked me was, well, should I be swapping out of, baseball and basketball and moving into football, where there's less pop count, lower pop counts and less available inventory? So I took two iconic players from 2019, Zion, obviously on the basketball side, and Kyler Murray on the football side, and just kind of did a quick little analysis just to look at, what the marketplace really has been doing with these cards. So if you look at PSA 10 sales year to date, as of yesterday, you've got 118 sales of Kyler Murray cards, but you've got more than 10 times that of Zion, about 1,342 cards sold. PSA 10s. And these are just sales, I should stress, not cards, actual sales, because when you do the analysis and you get a little deeper, you realize that, as far as Kyler Murray's cards go, 22 of those sales were actually duplicate flips of the same card. And on the Zion side, there were 182 sales that were flips of the same card. As a percentage, almost 20% of those cards were flips for Kyler Murray's cards versus 14% for Zion. What's really interesting is that one card was actually flipped 12 times. A Zion card was flipped 12 times, and the max flip for Kyler was about 5 times. As you would imagine, the pop counts are much, much higher for Zion's card, about 17,000 PSA 10s out there versus only about 2,000 for Kyler Murray's cards. And if you look at a percent of as a percent of the pop count, if you look at the sales, less flips, it's nearly the same. About 5% of the pop count was sold, in year to date of Kyler's cards versus 7% of Zion's. Now, you would imagine that since year to date, since there's been a lot more basketball season than football season, that this number would be a little bit different. You'd figure that there'd be a lot more, Zion cards being sold given the season, but that's actually not been the case. So it's about 5 to 7%, similar numbers. So the next question somebody asked me was, well, should I be flipping out of Zion and into Kyler? So I looked at the last 100 sales or so of PSA 10s of Zion's cards and Kyler's cards. And as you can see, the price has been somewhat similar, a couple outliers here and there, but for the most part, it's been kind of similar pricing in the call it 650, call it 400 to 650 range, a little bit lower for Kyler's cards. So again, I know it's biased because, you've got basketball season going on and football season, has not been going on. So maybe that's part of it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a similar card. So maybe there is a case to be made to be swapping out of Zion and into Kyler. So the next question is, well, what about timing, right? So is that the case where, when football season starts, cards start moving up? Now, a lot of other guys on other channels have done analysis of sort of when you should be getting into football. And they're exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, right now, if you look at, last year, this time, you've got Kyler cards sort of, in this range here, sub 500. Comes into getting closer to preseason, you're in the $700-800 range. Football season starts, you get a little bit of a pickup into, let's say, the first or second week of football, and then after the first or second week of football, everything sort of crumbles down. At least, again, looking at Kyler Murray as a proxy for values. So it crumbles down, season's over, and then the card starts picking up a little bit again, not by a lot. And I would expect this to trade in a range as well, and then maybe start moving up again, sort of a similar timing. So, everything, all the signs point to maybe it's time to swap out of Zion and into Kyler. So key takeaways: although the junk wax era is back for baseball and for basketball and baseball, it seems that football and hockey are safe so far, within a range. It's not to say that Panini won't run football production, through the moon. And it's too early to tell right now at this point, with the grading slowdown. Yes, there's a bias toward current season action, but it seems only related to football, not basketball. As we saw earlier, Zion's prices kind of stayed stable throughout the offseason and during the season as well. So it seems like there's some stability there. So the question is now a good time to swap into Kyler and drop Zion? You got stability pricing related to Zion. You've got seasonal pricing related to Kyler. The theory would be that Zion's price would be similar, in 6 months from now. And, that gives you some time to swap into Kyler at a lower price, let the football season come to you, flip out of Kyler, as the season starts, first 2 weeks into the season, and get back into Zion if you want to hold Zion long-term. So just some thoughts. Again, love comments, subscribe, and try to keep this content going for you guys. Right? Thank you. Take care.